After I became a millionaire, a man from my past appeared out of nowhere. My name is Victoria Hayes. I'm the founder and CEO of Hayes & Sterling, a luxury brand consultancy firm in Manhattan that works with high-end fashion houses and private clients. I built my empire from nothing, transforming a small PR agency into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. But this story isn't about business success. It's about the man who walked back into my life the moment I no longer needed saving, and the truth about why he left that I had spent 15 years getting completely wrong. I was standing in my penthouse on the Upper East Side, the kind of apartment I used to walk past and wonder who lived behind those floor-to-ceiling windows. Now I knew. Me. The girl from Queens who once shared a studio with 2 roommates and kept her interview shoes in a plastic bag under her bed. The October light fell across my living room in golden sheets, catching the crystal vase on the console table. Baccarat, purchased without checking the price. That still felt surreal. The cashmere throw draped over my Italian leather sofa. The original Rothko sketch my art consultant had acquired last month. Everything around me whispered the same quiet truth. You made it. But that afternoon, standing there with a glass of Sancerre I'd opened at 3 p.m. just because I could, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Empty. Not the kind of empty that comes from loneliness. I had friends, colleagues, a calendar full of gallery openings and charity dinners. I had built something meaningful, something mine. But there was a specific hollow space in my chest that no amount of success had managed to fill. A space shaped exactly like someone who disappeared from my life 15 years ago, taking a piece of my ability to trust with him. His name was James Marino. Before we continue, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Like this video so this story reaches more hearts, and subscribe for the next journeys. I hadn't thought about James in months. That was progress. There was a time when every subway ride, every coffee shop, every chance encounter with dark-haired men in navy coats would send my heart into my throat. Is that him? Did he come back? But eventually, you stop looking. Eventually, you build a life so full of other things that the absence becomes just another part of your foundation, like the scar from a childhood fall, permanent, but no longer painful. Until my phone rang that Tuesday afternoon. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something, instinct, fate, the universe's cruel sense of timing, made me swipe right. Victoria? The voice was older, rougher around the edges, but unmistakable. The wine glass nearly slipped from my hand. James. A pause that contained 15 years of silence. I'm in New York, he said, and I could hear him choosing each word carefully, like someone defusing a bomb. I know I have no right to call. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I saw your interview in Forbes last month and Another pause. I needed to tell you something. Something I should have told you a long time ago. My reflection stared back at me from the darkening window. A woman in a silk blouse that cost more than her entire wardrobe used to, holding a phone like it might explode. Tell me what? My voice came out steadier than I felt. Not like this. Not over the phone. He exhaled, and I heard something in that breath that I couldn't quite name. Regret? Fear? Can I see you? Just once. I promise after this, you'll never hear from me again. I should have said no. I should have hung up, blocked the number, poured another glass of wine, and congratulated myself on the boundary I'd maintained. But there was something in his voice, something broken and urgent and true, that made me hear myself say, tomorrow, the High Line near the Chelsea entrance, 2:00. Thank you, he said quietly. Victoria. Thank you. After he hung up, I stood there as the light shifted from gold to amber to blue. The city spread out below me, millions of lives layered like geological strata. And somewhere in all that density was the man who had once promised me forever, and then vanished like smoke, leaving only a note that said, "I'm sorry. This isn't what I want. I have to go." No explanation, no closure, no forwarding address, just absence, clean and complete. I had spent years trying to decode those 3 sentences, searching for hidden meaning in the spaces between words. This isn't what I want. Did he mean me? Our relationship? The future we'd planned? And now, 15 years later, he was back, with something to tell me. Something he should have said before. I moved to the window, pressing my palm against the cool glass. The truth was, I had survived his leaving. More than survived. I had transformed it into fuel, building an empire on the foundation of proving I didn't need anyone. Every client I signed, every deal I closed, every article that called me self-made, was a brick in the wall between who I'd been when James knew me and who I'd become without him. But there was something else. Something I'd never told anyone, not even my therapist during those dark months after he left. The real reason his disappearance had shattered me so completely. The thing I'd been carrying alone all these years, too ashamed to speak out loud. I turned away from the window, my heart beating against my ribs like something caged. Tomorrow, I would see him again. Tomorrow, I would finally hear his truth. But would I have the courage to tell him mine? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay in my king-sized bed. Egyptian cotton sheets, a mattress that cost more than my first car, and watched the city lights paint patterns on my ceiling. The same ceiling I'd stared at countless nights, building business strategies, rehearsing pitches, planning my next move. But tonight, my mind wouldn't cooperate with productivity. Tonight, I was 26 again. I got up at dawn, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was standing in my walk-in closet for 20 minutes, paralyzed by the question of what you wear to meet a ghost. The navy dress felt too formal, the jeans too casual, like I was trying to prove I was still the girl he left. I finally chose black trousers and a cream silk blouse, elegant but neutral, the uniform of a woman who had nothing to prove. Except I did have something to prove, didn't I? That's why my hands were shaking as I fastened my watch. A Cartier tank, the one I'd bought myself after my first 7-figure deal. A gift to the girl who used to window shop on 5th Avenue with empty pockets and full dreams. My assistant called at 9. "Victoria, you have the Bergdorf pitch at 10, lunch with the Vogue team at 1, and cancel everything," I said. A pause. Everything? Everything. I'd never done that before. Not in 10 years of building Hayes and Sterling. Not through flu, heartbreak, or the week my mother was in the hospital. Work was my sanctuary, my proof of worth, my evidence that I existed in a meaningful way. But today, I needed to be a different version of myself. The version who existed before ambition became armor. I spent the morning at my desk anyway, pretending to review contracts while actually Googling James's name for the first time in years. I'd trained myself not to look, not to check, not to keep tabs on someone who'd chosen to become a stranger. The search results were sparse. A LinkedIn profile that hadn't been updated in 3 years, something in finance based in Chicago. A mention in a business journal from 2019. A wedding announcement from 2015 that made my stomach drop before I realized it was a different James Moreno. Nothing that explained where he'd gone. Nothing that explained why. At 1:30, I left the building. My driver asked if I wanted the car, but I shook my head. Some journeys you need to take on your own feet. The walk to the High Line was 15 minutes of Manhattan autumn. That particular October crispness that smells like ambition and dying leaves. I passed tourists taking selfies, couples holding coffee cups, a street performer singing Sinatra with surprising grace. The city I'd conquered, the city that had watched me transform from a girl who believed in fairy tales into a woman who wrote her own story. But as I climbed the stairs to the High Line, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Vulnerable. I saw him before he saw me. He was standing near the railing, looking out over the Hudson, and 15 years had changed him in ways both subtle and profound. Still tall, still dark-haired, but there was a weariness in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. He wore jeans and a leather jacket that had seen better days, so different from the suits and luxury I'd surrounded myself with that it felt like we were visitors from different planets. Then he turned, and our eyes met, and I was 26 again, standing in our tiny apartment, reading a note that would alter the trajectory of my entire life. Victoria. He said my name like an apology. I walked toward him, my heels clicking on the wooden planks of the High Line. Around us, people strolled and laughed and took photos, completely unaware that the space between me and this man contained enough unspoken history to fill volumes. You look... He stopped himself. Successful. You look successful. I am. My voice came out cooler than I intended. You said you had something to tell me. He flinched slightly at my tone, but nodded. Can we walk? We moved north along the High Line, the city spreading out around us in layers of steel and glass and autumn color. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. I could feel the weight of his presence beside me, solid and real after existing for so long only as memory and ghost. I saw your interview, he said finally. The one in Forbes. They asked what your biggest challenge was in building your company, and you said, learning that I could only rely on myself. Heat flooded my face. I remembered that interview, remembered the journalist's look of surprise at my answer, remembered choosing those specific words because they were both true and a kind of message, though to whom, I hadn't admitted. That's what you wanted to talk about? My interview? No. He stopped walking, turned to face me. I wanted to talk about why you said it, about why I made you believe that. The afternoon light caught the gray in his hair, the lines around his eyes. Evidence of time passing, of a life lived beyond the borders of our shared history. You left, I said simply. You said it wasn't what you wanted, and you left. That's not something I believed. That's something you did. I know. His voice cracked slightly. But the reason I left... Victoria, it wasn't because of you. It was never because of you. Something in my chest tightened. Then what was it? He looked away, out toward the river where boats moved in slow progression. That's what I came to tell you. What I should have told you 15 years ago instead of running like a coward. A couple passed us, holding hands, and I felt a sudden sharp awareness of the space between James and me. Close enough to touch, but separated by a canyon of hurt and time. I started, then stopped. This was too public, too exposed. But the words wanted out anyway, words I'd held for 15 years. I thought it was because you found out. His head snapped toward me. Found out what? And there it was. The thing I'd been carrying. The reason his leaving had destroyed me so completely. But I couldn't say it. Not yet. Not here, with tourists and joggers and the whole oblivious city as witness. Never mind, I said quickly. Tell me why you're here, James. Tell me what was so important that you had to reappear after 15 years of silence. He studied my face for a long moment, and I had the strange sensation that he was seeing something I'd tried very hard to hide. Can we go somewhere else? He asked quietly. Somewhere we can actually talk? I should have said no. Should have held this conversation at arm's length, in public, where emotions had to stay contained. But I found myself nodding. Some truths require privacy to be spoken. Some confessions need walls. We ended up at a small cafe in the West Village, the kind of place I never went anymore. Too quiet, too intimate, too far from the polished restaurants where I conducted business lunches. The walls were exposed brick, the tables mismatched wood, and the coffee came in ceramic mugs instead of paper cups. It reminded me of the places James and I used to go when we were young and broke, and thought love was enough to build a life on. We sat by the window. Outside, the street was all golden light and falling leaves, beautiful in that painful autumn way that makes you nostalgic for things you're not even sure you remember correctly. James wrapped his hands around his coffee mug but didn't drink. I noticed his hands, still the same long fingers, but there was a scar across his left knuckle that hadn't been there before. Evidence of a life I knew nothing about. "I was in Chicago," he said finally. "When I left, I went to Chicago." "I know. I saw your LinkedIn." I said it without thinking, then felt exposed, admitting I'd looked. A small, sad smile. "I haven't updated that in years. I'm not in Chicago anymore. I'm in Portland now. I teach music at a community college." Music. He'd always played guitar back when we were together. I'd loved watching his hands move across the strings. Loved the way he'd close his eyes when he played something that moved him. "That's good," I said carefully. "That you're doing something you love. Is it what I love?" He looked down at his coffee. "Or is it what I convinced myself to settle for because I was running from what I actually wanted?" I didn't know how to answer that. "Why did you leave, James?" The question came out softer than I intended. The real reason. Not the note. Not the excuses. The truth. He was quiet for so long I thought he might not answer. Then, because I was terrified. Of what? Of not being enough. He looked up at me, and his eyes held something raw and honest. "Victoria, you were always going somewhere. Even back then I could see it. You had this fire, this ambition. You talked about the companies you wanted to work for, the life you wanted to build, and I was just a guy who played guitar in coffee shops and worked at a bookstore." "I loved that you worked at a bookstore," I said quietly. "I loved who you were. But I didn't." The confession came out rough. I didn't love who I was. And the more I saw you reaching for things, planning things, becoming things, the more I felt like I was going to be the anchor that held you down. Something in my chest cracked. "So, you left to set me free? Is that the story you've been telling yourself?" "No," he shook his head. "That would be noble. That would make me sound like less of a coward. The truth is I left because I was afraid you'd wake up one day and realize you'd outgrown me, that you'd look at me with disappointment or, worse, pity. So I left first, before you could leave me." I stared at him, trying to reconcile this truth with the narrative I'd carried for 15 years. "You thought I was going to leave you." "I was certain of it. So you made the decision for both of us." "Yes." He met my eyes, and I've regretted it every day since. The words hung between us, heavy and complicated. Around us, the cafe hummed with other people's conversations, other people's ordinary afternoons. A woman laughed at the table behind us. Someone's phone rang. Life continuing, oblivious to the fact that my past and present were colliding in ways I hadn't prepared for. "Did you ever think," I said slowly, "that maybe I deserved to make my own choice about who I wanted in my life?" "Of course I did. Later. Years later, when it was too late to fix it." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I remembered. "By the time I realized what I'd done, what I'd thrown away, you'd already built an empire. I saw your name in business journals, saw photos of you at events, looking powerful and untouchable, and completely beyond anything I could have given you. And I thought, she's better off. She built the life she was meant to have, and I would have only been in the way. You don't get to decide what would have been better for me, I said. And there was anger in my voice now, clean and sharp. You don't get to make yourself the villain in a story you wrote without consulting me. I know. His voice was quiet. I know that now. I looked out the window, watching people pass. A man with a dog, 2 women sharing earbuds, a delivery person checking their phone. All these lives moving forward, while I sat here being pulled backward into a past I'd worked so hard to leave behind. There's something you're not telling me, James said suddenly. I turned back to him. What? Earlier, on the High Line, you said you thought I left because I found out something. His eyes searched my face. Found out what, Victoria? My heart started beating faster. This was the edge of the cliff I'd been standing on for 15 years. The secret I'd never spoken aloud, not even to myself in the safety of my own mind. It doesn't matter now, I said. It matters to me. Why? So you can have all the confessions, all the truth-telling, while I just sit here and listen. The words came out sharper than I intended. You called me, James. You said you had something to tell me. So tell me, what else is there? Because I was afraid you'd leave me, so I left you first. Doesn't seem like something that requires 15 years of silence to confess. He looked down at his hands, and I saw his jaw tighten. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. I was sick. The words landed like stones in still water. What? When I left, I was sick. Or I thought I was. He looked up at me, and his eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. I'd been having symptoms for months. Headaches, dizziness, moments where I'd lose time or forget where I was. I finally went to a doctor a week before I left, and they found something on an MRI. A shadow. They said it could be nothing, or it could be something serious. They wanted to do more tests. I felt like the ground was tilting beneath me. I didn't want you to watch me die, he continued. Or worse, watch me become someone you had to take care of. You were 26, Victoria. You had your whole life ahead of you. I couldn't ask you to put that on hold for someone who might not even be here in a year. So you just left? Without telling me? My voice sounded strange to my own ears, like it was coming from very far away. I thought I was giving you a future, he said. I thought I was being brave. You thought wrong. The tears came then, hot and unexpected. You thought so wrong, James. He reached across the table, but I pulled my hands back. I wasn't ready to be touched. Not yet. Not when my entire understanding of the past 15 years was reorganizing itself like a kaleidoscope. What happened? I asked. With the tests, the shadow. It was nothing. A benign cyst. They removed it 6 months later and I was fine. His laugh was hollow. Completely fine. I'd blown up my entire life over something that turned out to be nothing. I sat there, trying to process this, trying to understand how someone could make such a catastrophic decision based on such incomplete information. But even as I thought it, I knew. Because I'd made my own decisions based on incomplete information, based on assumptions and fears and things I'd never had the courage to verify. Is that everything? I asked. Is that the whole truth? He hesitated, and in that hesitation, I saw there was more. There was always more. There's something else, James said, and the way he said it made my stomach drop. I waited, my coffee growing cold between my hands. After the surgery, after I realized I'd destroyed everything for no reason, I tried to come back. He looked at me with something like desperation. I tried to find you, Victoria, but you'd moved. Your phone number was disconnected. Your roommates had moved out. It was like you'd vanished. I did vanish, I said quietly. I couldn't stay in that apartment. Everywhere I looked, I saw us. I saw the life we were supposed to have. I know. I understand that now. He leaned forward. But there's more. I finally tracked down your friend Sarah. Do you remember her? She had that art gallery in Brooklyn. I nodded. Sarah and I had lost touch years ago. One of those friendships that couldn't survive the weight of my transformation. She'd known me when I was soft and breakable, and I couldn't let anyone see me that way anymore. I asked Sarah to give you a message, James continued. I wrote you a letter, explained everything. The diagnosis, the fear, the surgery, how wrong I'd been. I begged her to make sure you got it. Something cold settled in my chest. I never got a letter. I know. Sarah told me she gave it to you. She said she put it directly in your hands at some coffee shop in Manhattan. Said you read it right there and then. He stopped, his face contorted with pain. She said you tore it up without saying a word, walked away and never looked back. The cafe seemed to tilt around me. That's not possible, I whispered. I never received any letter. Sarah wouldn't lie to me. She had no reason to. But even as he said it, I saw the doubt flicker across his face. Because people did lie. People protected themselves and their versions of truth, and sometimes those versions had nothing to do with reality. When was this? I asked. When did Sarah supposedly give me this letter? November 2011. She said it was a Thursday afternoon. You were wearing a black coat and carrying a briefcase. She said you looked different, harder. November 2011. 6 months after James left. I was working at my second job then, a boutique PR firm in Midtown. I was different. I had made myself different, on purpose, with precision. I was never at a coffee shop with Sarah in November 2011, I said slowly. I hadn't seen Sarah in months. We'd had a falling out that summer. James's face went pale. But she described you. The coat, the briefcase. Did she describe my face? Did she say she was certain it was me? My voice was rising now, drawing looks from other tables. Or did she just see a woman who looked like I might have looked and convince herself it was me? He stopped. I don't know. She seemed so sure. People see what they want to see, I said bitterly. What did the letter say, James? What did you write? Everything. The diagnosis, the fear, how much I loved you, how sorry I was. I asked you to call me. I left my new number. He looked stricken. When you didn't call, when Sarah said you'd torn it up, I thought you hated me. That I'd hurt you so badly that forgiveness was impossible. So you gave up, I said. Again. What was I supposed to do? Chase someone who'd made it clear they wanted nothing to do with me? Yes. The word came out loud enough that the entire cafe went quiet. I didn't care. 15 years of silence was shattering, and I couldn't hold it in anymore. Yes, James. You were supposed to chase me. You were supposed to try harder than one letter that I never even received. You were supposed to love me enough to not give up so easily. I thought I was respecting your choice. I never made a choice. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. You made all the choices. You chose to hide your diagnosis. You chose to leave. You chose to believe a second-hand story about a torn-up letter. And I've spent 15 years building a life around the hole you left. trying to prove that I didn't need you, that I was better off, that your leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me. Victoria, do you know what I've told myself? The words were pouring out now, unstoppable. I told myself you left because you finally saw the real me. The broken parts, the damaged parts, the parts that weren't good enough or pretty enough or worth staying for. That's not true. I know it's not true. I was crying now, openly, in the middle of a cafe in the West Village, and I didn't care who saw. I know it intellectually. I've been to therapy. I've built a company. I've proven my worth 1,000 times over. But knowing something and believing it are different things, aren't they? James stood too, and before I could stop him, he took my hands. His touch was familiar and foreign all at once, a ghost made solid. Tell me, he said quietly, what you thought I found out. On the High Line, you said you thought I left because I found out something. What was it, Victoria? And there we were, the moment I'd been avoiding for 15 years. The truth I'd buried so deep I'd almost convinced myself it didn't exist. I looked at him, this man who'd once been my whole world, who'd left me and tried to come back and failed, who was standing here now with his own scars and regrets and incomplete truths. I was pregnant, I said. The words fell into the space between us like a detonation. James's face went completely white. What? When you left, I was pregnant. 6 weeks. My voice was shaking, but I kept going. I'd found out the day before. I was going to tell you that night, at dinner. I'd bought a card. Something stupid and sentimental with a drawing of 2 hearts becoming 3. But when I got home, you were gone. His hands tightened on mine. Victoria. I thought that's why you left. I thought somehow you knew, and it terrified you. And you ran. It was the only thing that made sense. Because the day before, everything was fine. We were fine. And then suddenly you were gone. And I was alone with this. This life inside me that I didn't know how to handle without you. What happened? His voice was barely a whisper. The baby. There is no baby, I said, and the words tasted like ash. I miscarried 3 weeks later. My body just let go. Maybe it knew I couldn't handle it. Maybe it knew I was too broken to carry anything that fragile. I pulled my hands away from his, wrapped my arms around myself. So you see, when you say you left to give me a future, what you actually did was leave me alone through the worst thing I've ever experienced. I lost you, and then I lost the piece of you I was carrying, and I had no one to tell, no one to hold me, no one to say it would be okay. James looked like I'd struck him. I didn't know. God, Victoria, I didn't know. I know you didn't. That's what made it worse. I built this entire narrative about why you left, and it was all wrong. You weren't running from responsibility. You were running from death. We were both running from things that never even existed. The cafe had gone completely silent around us. The barista was pretending to wipe down the counter. Other customers were staring at their phones, at their coffees, anywhere but at us. I'm sorry, James said, and his voice broke. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix it, I said. Sorry doesn't give me back those years. Sorry doesn't change the fact that I built my entire life around proving I didn't need anyone, because the one person I trusted with everything walked away. I know. We stood there in the terrible silence. 2 people who'd loved each other once, carrying wounds we'd inflicted without meaning to, without knowing, without ever having the chance to make different choices. I need to go, I said finally. Victoria, please. I need to think. I grabbed my purse, my hands shaking. I need to not be here right now. I walked out of the cafe into the cool afternoon air, and I didn't look back. Behind me, I heard James call my name, but I kept walking. Some truths are too heavy to hold standing still. Some confessions require motion to survive. I walked for hours, through the West Village, up through Chelsea, past the High Line where this had all begun just hours ago. My feet hurt in my expensive heels, but I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. If I stopped moving, I'd have to feel everything I'd just said. Everything James had told me. Everything we'd both been carrying for 15 years. The sun was setting by the time I found myself at the edge of Central Park. The sky was streaked with orange and pink, beautiful in that way that feels almost cruel when you're breaking apart inside. I sat on a bench near the entrance, watching joggers and dog walkers and tourists taking photos of the autumn leaves. All these people living their lives, unaware that mine had just been torn open and rearranged. My phone had been buzzing for the past hour. My assistant, my COO, 2 clients. But I couldn't make myself care about any of it. For the first time in a decade, work felt like what it actually was. A distraction. A very elaborate, very expensive distraction from the parts of myself I hadn't wanted to face. When my phone rang again, I almost didn't look. But something made me check the screen. James. I stared at his name for 3 rings before answering. "I'm not ready to talk," I said immediately. "I know. I'm not calling to talk." His voice was rough, like he'd been crying. I needed to make sure you were okay. Or as okay as anyone can be after. "I'm fine." The lie came automatically, a reflex. "Victoria, you don't have to do that with me. Not anymore." Something in my chest cracked a little wider. I don't know how to not do that. Being fine is what I do. It's who I am. "It's who you became," he said quietly. "It's not who you are." I closed my eyes against the sunset, against the truth of his words. "I'm in Central Park," I heard myself say. "The southeast entrance." A pause. "Do you want me to come?" Did I? I'd spent the last 3 hours running away from him, and now I was telling him where to find me. But maybe running was just another form of staying in the same place. "Yes," I said. He was there in 20 minutes. I watched him approach, hands in his pockets, that same old leather jacket, looking like someone who'd been weathered by life but not broken by it. He sat down on the bench beside me, leaving space between us. Respectful distance. For a while, neither of us spoke. We just sat there as the park settled into evening, as the joggers thinned out and the streetlights began to flicker on. "I keep thinking about the letter," I said finally. "The one Sarah supposedly gave me. If she was lying, why would she lie?" "I've been thinking about that too." James watched a couple walk past, their hands intertwined. "Maybe she thought she was protecting you. Maybe she saw how you'd changed, how you were building something, and thought telling you I was trying to come back would only hurt you more. Or maybe she gave it to someone else by mistake, someone who looked like me." I turned to him. "Does it matter? Either way, we didn't get the chance to fix it when it might have mattered." "Is that what you think? That it's too late?" I looked at him, really looked at him. The gray in his hair, the lines around his eyes, the way he held himself, like someone who'd learned to carry grief without letting it destroy him. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I spent 15 years convincing myself I was better off without you. That your leaving was the catalyst I needed to become successful. Every achievement, every milestone, I'd think. I did this without him. I didn't need him." "Did it work?" he asked quietly. "Did you stop needing me?" "I stopped needing anyone," I said. I made myself into someone who couldn't be hurt again because I'd never let anyone close enough to hurt me. That sounds lonely. It was. The admission felt like releasing something I'd been holding too tightly. It is. Even with all the success, all the money, all the proof that I made it, there's this emptiness. Like I built this beautiful house but forgot to put any furniture in it. It looks perfect from the outside, but inside, there's nowhere to sit down and rest. James was quiet for a moment. Then, "Can I tell you something? Something I've learned in the past 15 years?" I nodded. Running from pain doesn't make you brave. It just makes you tired. He looked at me. I thought leaving you was the courageous thing. Protecting you from my illness, from disappointment, from having to watch me potentially die. But it wasn't courage. It was cowardice. And I've been tired ever since. What would courage have looked like? I asked. Staying. Telling you the truth. Letting you decide if you wanted to face it with me. He smiled sadly. Trusting that you were strong enough to handle it. Trusting that we were strong enough together. The words landed softly, like snow. I was pregnant with your child, I said, and I lost it alone. I had a miscarriage in a hospital bathroom because I couldn't afford to miss work, and I cleaned myself up and went back to my desk and pretended everything was fine. Because that's what you do when you have no one, right? You just keep going. Victoria. No, let me finish. I turned to face him fully. For years, I blamed myself. I thought maybe the stress caused it. Maybe my body knew I wasn't ready. Maybe I didn't deserve to be a mother because I couldn't even keep the man I loved from leaving. And I've carried that guilt like a stone in my chest, and I never told anyone because I was ashamed. Ashamed that I'd failed at something so fundamental. James's eyes were wet. It wasn't your fault. I know that now. Intellectually, I know that. My therapist explained about first trimester miscarriages, about how common they are, how it's usually chromosomal, nothing the mother did or didn't do. I wiped my eyes. But knowing and feeling are different things. Yes, he said. They are. We sat in silence again. Around us, the park was settling into night. A street musician somewhere played jazz, the notes carrying on the cool air. What do we do now? James asked finally. With all of this truth, with all these years we can't get back. I don't know, I said. Part of me wants to tell you to leave again, to let me go back to my beautiful, empty life and pretend this conversation never happened. It would be easier. But I'm tired of easy, I admitted. I'm tired of pretending I'm fine when I'm not. Tired of building walls so high that no one can see in, but I also can't see out. Tired of being the woman who has everything except the one thing that actually matters. What's that? I looked at him. Connection. Real connection. The kind where someone knows all your broken parts and stays anyway. James reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, he took my hand. His palm was warm against mine, familiar in a way that made my throat tight. I can't give you back the 15 years, he said. I can't undo the pain or the loneliness or the miscarriage you went through alone. I can't even promise that if we tried again it would work. We're different people now. We've been shaped by different experiences, different choices. Then what can you give me? I asked. The truth, he said. No more running. No more deciding for you what you can or can't handle. No more being a coward when things get hard. He squeezed my hand gently. And maybe, if you're willing, we could try to figure out who we are now. Not who we were 15 years ago, but who we've become. I looked down at our joined hands. Once upon a time, this hand had held mine through movie theaters and dinner dates and lazy Sunday mornings. This hand had touched my face with tenderness I thought I'd never feel again. "I'm not the same person you left," I said. "I know. I'm not either. I'm harder now, more guarded. I don't trust easily. I don't blame you. And I've built a life that doesn't have room for someone else. My work is demanding. My schedule is insane. I travel constantly." "Victoria," he said gently, interrupting my litany of warnings. "You don't have to convince me not to want this. I'm already here. I've been thinking about this moment for 15 years. I looked up at him. "What if it's not enough? What if we're too broken? What if we're not?" he said. "What if the reason we've both been so lonely is because we've been looking for something we already found once and threw away?" The question hung in the air between us, full of possibility and terror in equal measure. We left the park as the last light drained from the sky, and somehow, without discussing it, we ended up walking toward my penthouse. The streets were alive with Thursday night energy, people spilling out of restaurants, taxis honking, the electric hum of Manhattan doing what it does best. But I felt separate from it all, like James and I were moving through a different dimension, one where the past 15 years were being slowly, carefully renegotiated. "I want to show you something," I said as we approached my building. The doorman nodded at me with his usual professional courtesy, but I saw his eyes flicker with curiosity when he noticed James. I'd never brought anyone home before, not in all the years I'd lived here. The elevator ride to the 32nd floor was silent. I could feel James taking in the polished marble, the brass fixtures, the quiet luxury that announced, "Someone important lives here." When I opened the door to my penthouse, he stopped in the doorway. "Victoria," he said softly. "This is..." "Too much?" I offered, seeing it suddenly through his eyes. The sprawling living room with its museum-quality art, the floor-to-ceiling windows framing Manhattan like a conquest, the designer furniture that had been chosen by someone paid to understand taste. "Beautiful," he said. "But it doesn't feel like you." The observation was so accurate it hurt. "No," I admitted. "It doesn't. But I thought that was the point. To become someone new. Someone better." I walked to the window, looking out at the city I'd claimed as mine. "After you left, after the miscarriage, I made a decision. I decided that the girl who loved you, who wanted a family, who believed in fairy tales, that girl was weak, naive. So I killed her." James came to stand beside me. "You can't kill parts of yourself. You can only bury them." "Is that what you did? In Chicago? Portland? Teaching music to community college students when you could have been, I don't know, anything else?" "I was punishing myself," he said simply. "Every day, choosing a smaller life than I was capable of, because I didn't deserve more. Not after what I'd done to you." I turned to look at him. "That's not living. That's just existing." "Isn't that what you've been doing too?" he asked gently. "Building this empire, collecting all these beautiful things, but not actually letting yourself live?" The words stung because they were true. I walked away from the window, toward a door James hadn't noticed yet. "I want to show you something. Something I've never shown anyone." I led him down the hallway to what appeared to be a guest bedroom, but when I opened the door, it revealed something else entirely. The room was smaller than the others, painted a soft cream color, and it was empty except for a single piece of furniture, a rocking chair positioned by the window. James stood in the doorway, and I watched understanding dawn on his face. "I bought this apartment 4 years ago," I said quietly. "When I was signing the papers, the real estate agent asked what I planned to do with this room. I told her a home office, but I've never put a desk in here. Just this chair." I walked to the rocking chair, ran my hand along its smooth wooden arm. Sometimes, when work gets to be too much, when the emptiness gets too loud, I come in here and sit, and I rock back and forth, and I think about the baby we didn't have, about what kind of mother I would have been, whether it would have been a boy or girl, what we would have named them. Victoria. James's voice was thick with emotion. I told myself I was over it, that I'd moved on, that it was just one of those things that happens to people, and I was strong enough to handle it. I looked at him. But you can't move on from grief if you never let yourself grieve in the first place. You just carry it with you, and it gets heavier every year. James crossed the room and knelt in front of the rocking chair, taking my hands in his. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't there, that you had to carry this alone. I chose to carry it alone, I said. After you left, people tried to be there for me. My mother, my friends, but I pushed them all away. I decided if I couldn't have you, I didn't want anyone. It was easier to be alone than to risk being left again. And now? He asked. What do you want now? I looked down at him. This man who'd broken me and been broken himself. Both of us carrying scars we'd inflicted on each other without meaning to. I want to stop pretending, I said. I want to stop building walls. I want to sit in this room and cry for the baby we lost. And I want someone to hold me while I do it. I want to be weak and scared and human again, instead of this perfect, untouchable thing I've made myself into. You were never untouchable, James said. Not to me. When I saw that Forbes interview, when I saw your photo at some gala or charity event, I didn't see someone who had it all together. I saw someone hiding. Someone who'd learned to smile in a way that didn't reach her eyes. The tears came then. 15 years of them. An ocean of grief I'd been holding back. James stood and pulled me into his arms, and I let myself break against him. Let myself be held. Let myself feel everything I'd been running from. I miss the person I was before. I sobbed into his shoulder. The girl who believed in happy endings, who wasn't afraid to need someone, who didn't measure her worth by her bank account. She's not gone, James said, his hand stroking my hair. She's right here. She's been here the whole time, waiting for permission to come back. We stood like that for a long time, in the empty room that should have been a nursery, holding each other through the grief we'd never properly acknowledged. When I finally pulled back, my face was wet, but I felt lighter somehow. Clearer. I don't know if we can go back, I said. I don't know if what we had 15 years ago can be rebuilt. Maybe we don't go back, James said. Maybe we go forward. Two different people who used to love each other, trying to figure out if they can love each other again. That sounds terrifying. It does, he agreed. But staying in this beautiful prison you've built sounds worse. I looked around the empty room, then back at him. If we do this, if we try, it can't be like before. No more secrets. No more making decisions for each other. No more running when things get hard. Agreed. And I need time. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not just running from pain or chasing success. I need to find the person underneath all the armor. Take all the time you need, James said. I've already wasted 15 years. I'm not going anywhere this time. I studied his face, looking for signs of doubt or hesitation, but all I saw was earnestness and grief and something that looked like hope trying to take root. I have a therapist appointment tomorrow, I said. I was going to cancel because of a meeting, but I think I'm going to go instead. And I think I'm going to tell her about today, about you, about the miscarriage, about all of it. James smiled. That sounds like a good start. And I think... I paused, the words feeling strange but right. I think I'm going to take some time off work. Actually take time off, not just answer emails from a different location. Maybe a week, maybe longer. What will you do? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe that's the point. To not know. To not have a plan or a strategy or a 5-year projection. To just be. Can I see you again? He asked. While you're figuring things out? Or do you need space from me too? I considered this. Part of me wanted to send him away, to process everything alone the way I always had. But that was the old pattern. The old armor. I'd like to see you again, I said. But slowly, carefully, like we're starting from the beginning, not trying to resurrect something that died. Slowly, he agreed. Carefully. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Can I give you my number? My real number? The one I'll actually answer? I took out my own phone, and we exchanged numbers like teenagers, like people just meeting, like strangers who might become something more. When he left that night, I stood at my window and watched the city lights blur through my tears. But they were different tears now. Not the tears of someone grieving alone, but the tears of someone finally letting the grief move through her instead of around her. I walked back to the empty room and sat in the rocking chair, letting myself rock slowly back and forth. And for the first time in 15 years, when I thought about the baby we'd lost, I didn't feel only pain. I felt something else too. Peace. Not the absence of sadness, but the presence of acceptance. The understanding that some things break and can't be fixed, but acknowledging them can still set you free. Outside, Manhattan continued its endless rhythm. Inside, something in me was finally slowly beginning to thaw. After I became a millionaire, I learned that wealth can build walls faster than it can build bridges. It's been 3 months since James walked back into my life. 3 months of careful conversations over coffee, of therapy sessions where I finally spoke the words I'd buried, of learning to let someone see me without my armor. We haven't rushed anything. No grand declarations. No moving in together. No promises we're not sure we can keep. Instead, we've been doing something much harder. We've been telling each other the truth. He told me about the years in Chicago, teaching himself to be small, to want less, to punish himself with mediocrity. I told him about the nights I'd stand in my penthouse at 3 a.m., surrounded by everything I'd achieved, feeling nothing but empty. We told each other about the people we'd tried to date, the relationships that never quite worked, because we were both comparing everyone to a ghost. We talked about the miscarriage, really talked about it. And I let myself cry, without apologizing, without trying to be strong. And slowly, something unexpected happened. I started to remember who I was, before I became someone else. Last week, I sold the penthouse. My COO thought I was having a breakdown. My accountant asked if I was sure this was a sound financial decision. But I didn't care about sound decisions anymore. I cared about waking up somewhere that felt like a home instead of a monument to loneliness. I bought a brownstone in Brooklyn, smaller, warmer, with a garden in the back that needs work. There's a room on the 2nd floor that gets beautiful morning light, and I'm turning it into something new. Not a nursery, not a memorial, just a reading room, with comfortable chairs and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a place to sit and remember and heal. James helped me paint it last weekend. We got more paint on ourselves than on the walls, and at one point, I laughed so hard I couldn't breathe. Real laughter. The kind I'd forgotten I was capable of. You know what I realized? I said to him as we cleaned brushes in the kitchen sink. I spent 15 years becoming someone successful, but I forgot to become someone happy. Are you happy now? He asked. I thought about it. I'm getting there. I'm learning how. This morning, I woke up in my new house, in a regular bed with regular sheets, no Egyptian cotton required, and made coffee in a kitchen that's still mostly boxes. Through the window, I could see the garden, wild and overgrown, full of possibility. My phone buzzed with meeting requests, client emails, 1,000 demands on my attention. But instead of responding immediately, I sat on my back steps with my coffee and watched a bird build a nest in the tree by the fence. Later, I went to the office. I'm still the CEO of Hayes & Sterling. I still work hard, still close deals, still build beautiful campaigns for clients who pay extraordinary fees. But now when someone asks me to work late, I sometimes say no. When a meeting conflicts with my therapy appointment, I choose therapy. My team adjusted faster than I expected. Turns out, they'd been waiting for permission to have lives outside work too. James and I are having dinner tonight. Nothing fancy. Just takeout in my half-unpacked house, sitting on the floor because I haven't bought a dining table yet. We're taking it one day at a time, one honest conversation at a time, learning who we are now instead of mourning who we were. I don't know if we'll end up together. Maybe we will. Maybe we're just meant to heal each other before moving on. Either way, I'm grateful. Grateful that he came back. Grateful that we finally told each other the truth. Grateful that I'm finally letting myself feel things instead of just achieving things. Yesterday, my mother called. We haven't been close in years. Another casualty of my transformation into someone untouchable. But I answered. And when she asked how I was, I didn't say fine. I said, I'm struggling, but I'm okay with struggling now. There was a long pause. Then, good. That sounds like growth. Maybe that's what becoming a millionaire really taught me. Not how to be successful, but how much success costs when you use it to hide from yourself. Not how to be powerful, but how lonely power becomes when you won't let anyone close enough to share it. I built an empire on the foundation of a broken heart, and it worked. I have the bank account, the reputation, the proof that I didn't need anyone. But I was wrong about something fundamental. Not needing anyone isn't strength. It's just another kind of prison. Real strength is letting yourself need someone and trusting them not to destroy you. Real courage is being vulnerable after you've been hurt. Real success is building a life that feels good from the inside, not just one that looks good from the outside. The revelation I carried for 15 years, that I was pregnant when James left, that I lost the baby alone, that I blamed myself, wasn't really the secret at all. The real secret was simpler, more devastating, more human. I was terrified that if I let anyone see the real me, the soft, scared, broken parts, they would leave. So I became someone no one could leave because no one could reach me in the first place. And in protecting myself from abandonment, I abandoned myself. But I'm coming back now, slowly, carefully, learning to live in a house with comfortable furniture instead of a showcase, learning to laugh without worrying if it makes me seem less professional, learning to cry without seeing it as failure, learning to be human again. Tonight, when James arrives with Thai food and that crooked smile, I'll let him in. Not just into my house, but into my mess, my uncertainty, my still healing heart. And maybe that's the real wealth. Not the money in my account or the company with my name on it, but the courage to let someone see you completely and trust that they might stay anyway. After I became a millionaire, I finally learned what I'd been missing all along. A life worth living isn't one where you never fall apart. It's one where you let yourself break and then let someone help you put the pieces back together. If this story touched you, leave your rating from 0 to 10 in the comments and subscribe for the next journey.